Hi, this is Little Dwarf playing games while rumbling incoherently into a microphone. Why? Well, just because I can. And I continue with the Town of Light blind. I am currently taking my doll, Summer Worm, which, if you ask me, is not a great sign regarding my mental stability, but that's what the game is about, so, you know. Oh, I have to open the door first, duh.
The cold has gone away now, you see? The light, the warmth. We can do it. The cold will go away. It has to. Now we can enter the ward where everything started.
What? Press H to receive help. It sounds a bit weird in a game about mental illness, but I assume the game means hints or something.
It all began in the observation ward on the ground floor.
Yes, it does mean that, actually. I was assuming I am taking the doll with me, but apparently not. Well, see you around, I guess. I can't even turn back, so I don't think this is a maze per se. It just... I assume I'm just meant to be going forward.
One day I turned off the light, but it didn't go dark. It was a limitless immensity, a blinding, merciless light. I was 16 years old, and I was afraid, always afraid, a fear that wore me down. I needed help, but I couldn't speak. I was terrified of everything, even thinking. They said they were taking me to a place where the fear would go away, where I would get better. I stopped living in there. They dragged me away and stripped off all my clothes, everything. I tried to explain what was going on in my head. They tied me to the bed for days. I was alone with my nightmares. It wasn't fear anymore. It was madness. And when you're mad, you cease to exist. She was my only hope in this hell. I was descending down among the damned. But that woman and her smile kept me alive.
Okay, so wait, it's 2016 now, and she says she was 16 when she got committed? But that would be... She can't be more than 30 now. So... I'm not sure if I entirely trust her account. Obviously, with some kinds of mental issues, mental health issues, you might have a little bit of a jumbled memory of how it went down exactly. And like the thing that was sort of alluded to in that sequence there, historically speaking, in insane asylums, they were less, in the pre-modern era, like I guess, up to like the second half of the 20th century even, maybe, they were less of a hospital and more like a prison for people with problems. Like, it was just a place where you dumped people that were problematic. Because obviously we didn't know much about how to treat mental illness, and things like psychiatric medication, they weren't really that prevalent or understood. So like, it wasn't unheard of where people would basically dump their mentally ill family members in one of those asylums and just never look back. It was assumed in some of those cases you would never recover. It was basically, as I said, like a prison for people with problems.
The door is locked from the outside. Here, the doors can only be locked and unlocked from the outside.
Volterra Psychiatric Hospital, transfer file for T. Renée, age 17, April 4, 1938. The patient Renée T. is transferred from a temporary asylum in the observation room to the quiet ward.
You can't get out of here. Only the dead can leave this place.
Yeah, I also think it's not a good sign that it's night, because it was, at at worst like late afternoon when I arrived. So I must have been sort of passed out or like lost in my own head for at least a couple hours here.
He laughed, panted, and slobbered all over me. It hurt me when he touched me. I thought I'd suddenly split open with a loud crack, and I would be shattered into pieces. I felt fragile, sick, dirty, degraded. All I could do was clutch Charlotte tightly while Renée obeyed. He was the master in the realm of light. I was being consumed by the evil act I had committed. I threw up and could feel hell getting closer and closer. Those tests the doctors did to me. They said there was something growing inside, and they wanted to drag it out of me.
Okay, so that name Renée, it did appear already, but it was in the 40s. So, as I said, I am a bit unsure on the chronology here, and like the exact identity of my character, the current one at least, versus the one in the intro. Like maybe I am that one's daughter, because also it was kind of alluded to that someone might have been pregnant. Like ostensibly it was me, but again I can't be more than 30 now, and I was 16 back then. But I guess at 16 you're all too capable of being pregnant, because there was this mention of something growing inside of you, which obviously might refer to a pregnancy or cancer, I guess. But pregnancy would fit better, because there was also, not even implied, it was directly shown that she was being sexually assaulted. So she might have been raped, actually. I still don't have more of those, which is interesting to me. Like I feel like I'm missing something. Like, look, there's even a very sort of visible gap at the very beginning, and I don't feel great about it, because usually I like collecting all of the collectibles, and like not collectibles, but like flavor texts and whatnot. And it's day again, so clearly I'm not doing all right as far as my head is concerned. Dear Mr. Director, the present letter is to recommend to your precious attention Mrs. Irene K., admitted in your institute last April the 12th. Sure of your special attention to the unfortunate woman, our dear friend, I beg you to provide for her every need. The family will satisfy every expense. For any concerns, please contact Attilo D., who will personally come to visit. Sincerely yours, Cardinal G. June 24th, 1926. Dear Director, I have been working at this institution for 5 years now. I am a simple person, I am not educated, and I feel embarrassed about writing to you. I always try to look at the bright side, but sometimes we are called upon to do difficult things. That's our duty, and I well understand and accept it. There's no alternative. However, I have decided to write to you because something is happening which is simply unacceptable. I am well aware that there's someone among us who devotes much attention to the young female patients who are confused. The serious nature of this has compelled me to write to you. I am certain of your indignation and of the measures you will adopt to solve the problem. Please accept my warmest regards and respect. So at the very least someone noticed and tried to do something about it, which is better than nothing, I guess. Is this another journal? Yeah, it is another journal part. But it's from the very end this time.
He felt accused, hurt. I chased him away. I insulted him. He was proud, handsome. He said things about me to other people, which he shouldn't have said. Mother caught me coming home drunk. She beat me and sent me to speak to Don Gino every day. He came back and tried to speak to me. I think he liked me. Sometimes I sent him packing and I started shouting at him. But other times I embraced him. I held him tight and loved him. But he couldn't bind himself to me. I was 16 and ill. I had no future. I didn't get out of bed for weeks. Then I did things I was ashamed of. I slept with men. The guilt tore at my soul, and the light came back to torture me. I invented stories to justify my actions. I couldn't bear my own weight. Mom found out about it. Her voice split my head. I pushed her away because I was afraid of dying, and I shouted to the whole world what was happening to me and that I didn't understand. The police arrived and they carted me away. I remember the onlookers shaking their heads. They would be better off without me, cleansed of shame, with something to talk about for a while.
Again, that doll is very creepy. Thank you very much. I don't have the entirety of the context, which again I don't think I should at this point. But again, historically speaking, being a woman kind of sucked, and many people would argue it still does in certain parts of the world, because like. Societies historically, they used to place a lot of importance and a lot of sort of implied judgment on women's sexual habits. You know, in various times and places, things like prostitution were either illegal or at the very least, like it was such a heavy social stigma associated with, sleeping around that people didn't really care what happened to you. Like, you kind of ceased to be human to many of those people. Because they were like, oh, you've chosen this path of sin and, like, selling your flesh. So whatever happens to you, be that disease or abuse or whatever, you kind of deserve that because you have been, unclean. You have been, you have led a life that's sort of morally repugnant. So yeah. School for Nurses. According to the Article 24 of the August 16, 1909, a regulation for the implementation of February 14, 1904, law on insane asylums and patients, the present certificate of suitability for asylum nurse is issued to the name and surname who has in the exams obtained a score of points on 30th, Volterra, obtained a score of XX points out of 30 in Volterra on May the 12th, 1929. The director.
She stayed with Renée during those terrible medical examinations, and that gave her the strength to survive.
Okay, this is just the main part of the building. Is there really nothing more apart from those anatomical sketches? So I probably overlooked something on the lower floor, which is a bit...
They went to the gynecology ward on the upper floor.
But wait, that's literally over here. So, what am I supposed to be doing here?
August 21st, 1938. Confidential. Dear A, I know what you think about these things, so I'm referring a patient to you, Renée T. This wretched girl got out of control and caused trouble in the grounds. She's almost 3 months pregnant. The nurses should be more alert. I'm examining the girl on the 28th. I'll handle things very carefully, don't worry. We don't want to make matters worse.
Yeah.
Then they said that Renée was crazy, and that the illness was all in her head. Careful, little girl, careful. I was scared, and I didn't talk to anyone about the illness. Only her. Not even the other doctor. He never touched Renée. He just wrote things down. You can tell me everything. Don't be afraid, he said. Everything's going to be fine. Do you want to know what I'm writing? I note down what I observe in you, everything I see. He didn't hate Renée. He tried to help her, but he rarely examined her in those small surgeries.
Now, this is a bit unclear to me again, because the protagonist does use, she does use the word I when talking about certain things. So it's not like she's incapable of perceiving herself sort of in the first person. But from context, it might be that I'm Renée, but obviously that doesn't make a lot of sense chronologically, I don't think, because I would have to be like 60 or whatever. But this is a game about mental health issues, so I think a lot of things should probably be taken with a grain of salt, because once your memories are jumbled enough, the dates might as well not make any sense. Like, I'm unable to tell really, but what annoyed me specifically in that message right there was how it writes about the girl causing trouble, but as far as I know from what the game is presented me, the pregnancy might very well be a result of rape. Now, she mentions surgery, and there are surgical rooms right here. Yeah, right. They're even open.
June 1935. After much theorizing and practice in clinics for the privileged, the moment for action has finally arrived. Volterra is the right place. It's an avant-garde hospital, the perfect place for a doctor who really wants to make a difference. November 20th. Crossing the threshold of the asylum was similar to entering another dimension. A world of smells, noises, and images which it is almost impossible to imagine, describe, or explain. August 1936. The situation is similar to that in many other institutions. The department is overcrowded. Hundreds of patients are supervised by a handful of nurses who are forced to tie the more distressed ones to their beds or to radiators. They do 24-hour shifts. It's impossible to work like this. We doctors rarely see the female patients, and it's the nurses who tell us what's happening to the women. The overpowering stench in the wards, the constant din of shouts and voices that are barely recognizable as human, dirty, naked bodies devoid of any dignity. The lunatic asylum gets under your skin and wears you down. I often consider resigning. I feel useless, impotent, a sort of merciful jailer, a mercy that helps no one and only helps to ease my conscience. March 15th, 1938. Dramas are played out before my eyes every single day, and I try to distance myself from them and just do the best I can. But a girl arrived some days ago. I couldn't avoid her gaze. All she asked in her dignified silence was not to be ripped away from her world. And me. I'm old enough to be her father, the father she never had, who didn't want her, who rejected her without even knowing her. I, too, refused what she asked me. I couldn't do anything but add my signature and consign her to hell. A danger to herself and to others, and a cause of public scandal. This was what was written on the accompanying note from the police headquarters. It was difficult not to agree with it. How much more violence must this poor girl be subjected to? Her gaze is so intense, so far removed from the carefree nature which should be the joyous hallmark of her age. I cried myself to sleep in my solitude. I kept thinking about those sad and frightened eyes staring at me.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was talking about, how a cause of public scandal was in some, was in some circumstances seen as kind of akin to a mental illness. Like, you could be completely sane from a modern perspective, but your life choices would have branded you as, as a lunatic in the past. And in fact, it was even weaponized, for example, most famously by the Soviet Union, where they had this habit of locking their own political dissidents in insane asylums, because they had a special name for that, psychushka, because they argued that whoever disagrees with the stated goal of achieving socialism must be insane. Like, you can't disagree with the state because it's so glorious and good and correct, that if you do disagree with the state, that must mean you're not all right in the head. Admission and personal details. Damiani Saviero, father Gino, mother Maria, married. Number of children 5. Date of birth 13th of September 1983. Profession butcher. Economic condition poor. Religion Catholic. I kindly request your illustrious excellency to kindly convey to this address any information regarding the insane Damiani Saviero, son of the deceased Sirio and Contiti Maria, born and residing there, aged 53, admitted to the institute on 19th of June 1936. Okay, so those are the missing pages from the beginning.
My name is Renée. They told me that I have to write this diary, but I don't feel like it. It's not true that I feel better when I write. Actually, it's worse. I was a shy girl, and I just wanted to be like the others. But that's not what happened. No. I did things that, when I think about them now, eventually brought me here. Everything started with that damned light. It happened for the first time when I was still a little girl. I was 6 or 7. I was walking outside school when suddenly the noise started to melt into an indistinct rumble. The light increased out of all proportion and everything lost its meaning. I could no longer recognize anything. Objects, people, words, not even myself.
Now, in brackets, there's sleep, and don't stare at me. What are you looking for?
I felt fear as a physical sensation. It prevented me from moving, from swallowing, from breathing. After God knows how long, everything went back to normal. But a new fear replaced the old one. Different but terrible. Of the light coming back. And it did come back.
Okay, it says here, Snapdragon. I can't move, I'm afraid of the light. So I assume the light is some kind of a hallucination or like a feeling I got inside my head. I assume it was at least partially actually a visual sort of hallucination, because a light, how can you know, a light is a thing that you perceive with your eyes. You cannot, like, what else can you do with a light? How can you tell there's a light if you don't see it? But I think this episode has been long enough, so I'm going to pause it here. That's all for this one, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.